Why does self-improvement often lead to suffering? One of the most puzzling things to me is the nature of change. We see progress in many forms: evolution, technological advancements, better cars, safer planes, more efficient refrigerators. There's a surface-level peace in societal development, but does this progress bring about a fundamental change in us, in you and me? It might change the outer conditions of our lives, but does it transform the way we think at the core? How does such a deep change even happen? We often think of self-improvement as becoming better, kinder, less jealous, less ambitious, more generous. But does this process of improving ourselves really change the way we think? Or is it just progress? Progress is tied to time, isn't it? Today I am this way and tomorrow I'll be better. Self-improvement, self-denial, or self-rejection, it's all a gradual movement toward a better life. But it's still just an adjustment to the surface, a conformity to some ideal of improvement. We're bound by rules, even if they seem noble. This process is everywhere all the time. But what we need to ask is, does progress bring about a radical revolution? For me, what matters isn't progress but revolution. Don't be scared by the word revolution. It's just that unless we understand the need for not just social development but a fundamental shift in our perspective, all we have is progress within suffering. It might soothe the pain, but it doesn't end it. Progress, in the sense of gradual improvement, is really just the progress of the ego, the me. Obviously, there's progress in self-improvement. It's an effort to become something better, to have more of this quality and less of that flaw. But just as refrigerators and planes improve, so does the ego. That kind of progress won't free the mind from suffering. If we want to understand suffering and how to end it, we can't think in terms of progress or time. If you say, "I'll be happy tomorrow," you're still living in suffering today. To understand this, we have to look at the whole question of consciousness. Is this a different issue altogether? If I really want to understand suffering and end it, I can't just try to improve or develop myself. I have to look at the entity that's trying to improve itself. I have to understand the motive behind the desire for improvement. All of this is consciousness. We have a surface-level awareness of our daily activities, work, family, the constant changes in our environment and society. These can be joyful or full of conflict and confusion. But there are also deeper layers of consciousness, inherited from centuries of human society. We're trying to explore consciousness, to see if the mind can be free from suffering, not just change the pattern of suffering, not just redecorate the prison, but break free from the root of suffering. In this exploration, we'll see the difference between progress and psychological revolution, which is necessary for freedom from suffering. We're not trying to adjust or replace our way of thinking, we're simply observing. If we observe even a little, we'll notice that most of our awareness is superficial. The surface of the mind is very active, busy with adjustments, work, survival, expressing talents, seeking rewards, or achieving scientific knowledge. Most of us are content to live on this surface. But why do we accept the misery of living superficially? Can we go deeper and see the motive behind these surface adjustments? If you glimpse this whole process, you'll see that adjusting our views, conforming to authority, and so on, are all driven by self-preservation. If you look even deeper, you'll find a vast collective influence, racial, national, the accumulation of struggles, knowledge, effort, dogma, tradition, and so-called education over centuries. All of this has conditioned the mind into a certain pattern. Go deeper still, and you'll find the core desire to become someone, to succeed, to express yourself in various social activities, which creates anxiety and fear. In short, all of this is consciousness, our thinking, driven by the urge to become something, layered with tradition, culture, education, and shallow social norms that force us into a pattern of survival. Any progress within consciousness is self-improvement, and self-improvement is a form of progress within suffering. It doesn't end suffering. If the mind is concerned with being completely free from suffering, what must it do? Have you ever thought about this? We suffer, don't we? We suffer not just from physical illness, but from loneliness, poverty, unrequited love. In any form, thinking brings suffering, so we stop thinking and blindly accept some belief, calling it religion. If the mind realizes that suffering can't end through self-improvement or progress, what must it do? Can the mind go beyond this consciousness, beyond its motives and conflicting desires? And to do that, is time important? Notice this, not just in words, but in reality. If time is important, you're back to progress. Do you see that? Within consciousness, any movement in any direction is self-improvement, and therefore the continuation of suffering. Suffering can be controlled, refined, rationalized, or made more subtle, but its hidden nature remains. To be free from suffering, there must be freedom from the seed of the self, the ego, the whole process of becoming. To go beyond suffering, this whole process must end. If you ask me, how do I go beyond this? The how becomes a method, a practice, and that's still within progress. There's no state of going beyond, only the refinement of consciousness within suffering. A mind that thinks in terms of progress, improvement, and time can't see that so-called progress is just the progress of suffering. That must end. Not in the future, not tomorrow, but immediately. Otherwise, you're back in the same old cycle of suffering. If the problem is clearly understood, the answer will come. To transform all of this requires tremendous attention. This total attention, in which there's no choice or sense of becoming, frees the mind from the process of self-consciousness. There's no experiencer behind it, and the mind is free from suffering. The accumulation of things is the root of suffering. We don't let things end at the close of each day. We don't free ourselves from traditions, family influences, personal experiences, or the desire to hurt others. One must die to all of that in each moment. One must end all of it, even accumulated memories. Only then is the mind free from the self, which is the entity of accumulation.